Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
Okay, so we're back. This is the most funny, awkward show, but I'm enjoying it. Sandy, you've thrown some interesting ingredients into our stew.
I should be back in about 3 years. I guess I'll get invited back.
Well, if you're lucky, it'll be 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'd be interested to hear what you have to say.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
I'm okay. I think it feels really great in here, and as I said on the break, it might be something about bringing some of the feminine into the masculine. So maybe that's why I'm enjoying it.
Yep.
But I'd like to know how you're enjoying it. Freeman said something about being uncomfortable, which I think is kind of good, because talking about being vulnerable and uncomfortable and being uncomfortable are two different things. So
Totally.
to be able to be in it is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's miraculous. I am thrilled, as always, to be with you. It is always amazing to me that I'm with you, even after all these 33 odd years, zillion years. I'm always amazed. And it's always uncertain.
Yeah.
So this is, we say cutting edge consciousness. Our relationship is certainly cutting edge relationship. I never know what's going to happen. So I am thrilled that you brought it here. It keeps it real.
Honest. The word that comes to mind for me is honest. What I get from you, you're the guy that stands in the fire with me, but you're honest. I can always turn to you and go, I know I'll get honesty from you, Sandy. I'm dropping things now too. Awkward. Honest and awkward, see?
I love it.
Those are qualities we
But you know how
we appreciate
adorable
here.
you are when you're honest and awkward? Like, you're so adorable and
Well, but see, this is
handsome
a
and
slippery.
loving
So
and-
this is a slippery slope.
Now's when you want to schedule a meetup.
Yeah. So now this is the tricky part. So
You're attractive.
bless you. But what happens in hearing that is my little boy who wants the attention. It wants to shtickize it, right? How do I make shtick?
I see.
How do I make this into a shtick? How do I now? So that's so great feedback.
But you know that, so you know what you know that, and you know, but we really don't have to do that.
No.
And we're not going to.
No, we're not. But I'm just saying that, look, how quickly does authentic become inauthentic?
Yeah, because
only
we're so
if we give it up.
Well, because we're so uncomfortable being connected, really connected, because it was never modeled.
Never.
And we don't know how to do it. So we're coming into this world trying to figure it out in our later years. You know yourself, Barnet, from your breathing exercises. You tell me you start to breathe and in 2 seconds you're falling asleep.
This thing, for folks listening, this thing that Sandy brought us through, you may want to do it a few times. Go back and look at the tape of this, or however you have it, the file of this, and do it with her a few times. There are a number of different kinds of breath practices that you work and study and teach, and I am the beneficiary when I have the fortitude to focus on it, of some of them. And it's challenging because it brings me so completely present that it feels threatened. I feel threatened.
And even as you're talking about it right now,
I'm going out.
even as you're talking about it, you're leaving a little. So take a breath and come back. It's very subtle, but now talk about it
it's
from
sometimes not at all subtle. It's so unsubtle that in 3 or 4 big breaths, I can suddenly yawn.
here. Right.
And by the 4th breath, I can be asleep. And to fight it, it doesn't help either. There's just this opening to being more and more alive and to feeling the movement of life and chi through my body, which has been abandoned for so long. So I don't have a familiarity with that capacity yet. I'm growing it.
I'd say you're the average American male. I mean, that's my perception.
And female.
I don't
think it's,
So-
this is not so much a gender issue.
We've tripped on this chord before. I'm not trying to bash guys. I think guys have it maybe harder than women. I'm not sure if that's true, but I mean, I think it's systemic. It's across the lines of gender, for sure. But I think that I think guys have it rougher in this culture. That's just one man's opinion. I just think it's harder to get present because we're so in our heads. And I mean, just the whole armoring and how much armor it takes for me to get through the day. And the idea of putting it down is really precarious. I think women can find circles and arenas where they can be more open and honest. And I just don't think for men we do that often.
And I think there's some truth to that, but I would even say that it's harder for the masculine energy than the feminine energy. And I've spent a lot of years being a woman living in my masculine energy.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you said armored and all that, I could really relate. And I went through my day, as Barnet used to make fun of the toes of all my shoes. He used to say, you kick your way through your day with
they
my
were always
armor
like
on,
totally
scuffed.
torn up and scuffed.
Literally, yeah.
Literally, because she would like stomp through life.
That's
I think
really
it is.
interesting.
I think more
Yeah.
women have access to the feminine energy, which is a more opening, nurturing energy. But you say you take 3 breaths and get really present, and then you want to go to sleep, or you get really present and then you want to do a shtick, or I get really present and then I want to know what I should do to make sure that you're happy and love me.
Totally.
We all do what it is, but when you can but the thing is, you're always just 3 breaths away from yourself.
Yeah.
At any moment you can get back.
And you
And
can
course
see,
correct.
we can experience and feel palpably the presence of somebody who is fully in their body. So this man that I was referring to earlier, Victor, this man, even if I didn't, if I had no understanding of what was going on with him, I would still recognize something special about this man, this presence. That he is in that body. And so whatever is going on around him, he's like the strong arms of the goddess. He's just available to be the container. It's more feedback for who he is and how he relates to people. That is a presence that not just that I aspire to, but I'm able to see that and recognize it and realize, well, if I can see it, I can be it.
And you can really feel the difference when someone is relating to you from out here, beyond the boundary, trying to get you to like them.
The boundary of their energy.
Their boundary of their energy. If they jump outside their energy and they're just doing the shtick or doing whatever they do to try to
enroll you to.
The desire is to connect, but the truth is you can't really connect from out there. And then you're describing this man, and as you tell the story, I'm seeing that he is connecting from here to you, not from out here to you. Because from out here, there's nothing to hold on to.
From
and that's
from
how
out there, everyone's objectified.
And that's how we do mostly all day long.
Yeah,
without presence.
The
back.
objectifying, holding people at arm's distance, casting them in roles that fulfill the obligatory characters in our script to keep our world in place, right? To keep this small story going, I've got to keep everyone out there. And to humanize someone and let them in is risky, And that's why, it's interesting because you're...
But it's not even humanizing them.
It's humanizing
to
me.
let them in.
Right.
It's
right.
self-agenting. I am going to be agent. My focus is going to always be here, and from here I will really connect. It's just like in a relationship when we argue. It's always a one-person story. It's never about him. It's always about me. It's
I'm
never.
going to remind you about that.
And I'm just enrolling someone else in my story.
Yeah.
But that's
You're
very
not even
similar.
enrolling them.
I'm not defending what I was saying. I'm just saying that's very close to what I was saying.
It's a Rorschach test.
I'm
That's
casting
right.
people in
You're
roles.
projecting.
I need them to play to keep my story
That's
going.
right.
And if they stop playing it, then I got to get rid of them. And I got to find someone else who want to play that role.
Yeah.
Or my storyline falls apart. The opening to possibility outside of that small story construct where they can come in and be something different is at once disorganizing and simultaneously thrilling because anything can happen, right?
Yeah, and that again can only happen from the place of authenticity
Right.
that you bring
Right.
to the relationship.
Brilliant.
I mean, you wouldn't have had that exchange with that guy had you not been home. He wouldn't have shown up that way, and you wouldn't have been touched.
That's great language. Had you not been home,
Yes.
you weren't literally home, but
I
you were
mean,
home in your body.
Yeah,
Home in
exactly.
your body. And
Fantastic.
the thing is, I was in Canada inside of a very particular role.
Oh, that's interesting too.
How did you?
And-
What was he doing in your? Was he
Well,
involved?
he wasn't, but
Oh.
I was in Canada inside of a role of I'm directing a movie there, and I was inside of that role. So I chose not to bring that with me in this. I was in this other meeting, and I thought I'm going to leave that because I don't want it gets in the way. It prevents a real connection. It gets in the way.
Yeah.
People aren't real,
Yeah.
and they're always performing at different levels. Somebody, you know,
Or you're
somebody-
performing
or
the
I'm
role of
performing.
director.
I'm doing
Yeah.
my thing.
Yeah.
So it gets in the way. So I left it at the door, and I was in this environment, and I was just in this environment as me, without any of that stuff. And so I had this, without leading from there, I had this very beautiful and very deep conversation that I would not have had. It would have been a different kind of conversation, or not at all. How much of life is swept aside because I narrowed down what my options are, either out of who I am being or who I am willing to be impacted
Totally.
by, across the board, and just day to day, whether I am at the grocery store and I am micro-focused on a particular thing. We tune ourselves to something specific, and then that's all we can get. And it's the one who is robbed is myself.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, we were up in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, and we spent a day with Eckhart Tolle and a few other people, about 30 other people, not just us. And he was doing some filming, so we were fortunate enough to be in the audience. And what was so impactful about what he was saying, which is kind of a version of what you're saying, is the things that make you the most astonished are the smallest things. But if you're not present in the moment, you don't experience any of those small things. So it's almost a cliche to say, you know, there's beauty in nature. Well, there's not beauty in nature if you're not home.
Totally.
But if you're home, the smallest little tiniest purple flower growing out of the desert can
Marvelous.
take your breath.
Totally.
I can cry just thinking about it.
Yeah.
So
You cry at cotton commercials.
yeah, I know.
I do
But
too.
so that's one thing that I'm thinking that was so, you know, I loved when Eckhart used the word, like, it can be astonishing. It can be thrilling. Even in a supermarket, if you're really present, the way a mother puts her hand on a child's head walking down the aisle can rip your heart open. I
Yeah.
mean, it could be anything. And the other thing I was thinking when you were talking, Barnett, about going to that meeting with no agenda. I remember when you wanted to go to China because you wanted to go to a place where none of your ego stuff, who you were, would, first of all, nobody would know you. Nobody would be impressed. You couldn't take any of that with you. You would be dropped in another world so that everything was new, and you wanted to experience what that would be like. And you literally had an anxiety attack.
Mm-hmm.
It was so shocking. I mean, it was many years ago at the beginning of his path. But
long,
literally
20,
had
30
an
years ago.
anxiety attack when you ripped away the ego, and you had an intention to go and have the ego rip it away, and you did. And what came out of it was
There was this other, we are running out of time, so I'll close that with a beautiful little story. At that time, so I'm in Beijing someplace, and I have this huge anxiety attack. It was right after Tiananmen Square. This is the first group of people foreigners that were allowed in the country, and they invited a group over in order to do propaganda, and so they brought some media people over, and I was on that group. We were the only Westerners there. And I'm having a major anxiety attack, and I'm lost in the city, and I even lost my handler, so how anxious can you get when you lose your handler?
In China.
I had been working with a teacher for many, 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 many years who has a particular music that they play all the time. And I am lost, and I suddenly hear this music.
Mm-hmm.
And I follow this music, and I find this tiny little alley in a teeny little store, and all they have is, I don't know what they were selling, little boxes and boxes of some kind of spice. And behind there is like an old cassette recorder, those double-deck cassette recorders. Old thing. And inside is a tape of this music. And, we feel we're alone in the world. It takes a lot of focus and a lot of energy to maintain that story.
That's beautiful.
We're alone in the world. And with that, I think we are at the end of this show.
So thanks for tuning in.
I hope it's a little less awkward.
It's great now.
Now
We
it's
invite
great.
you to come back next week.
But not you.
We'll be here one way or another. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for putting up with me.